and welcome to Today's Rolls Mumbo Jumbo for February something or other. 7th-ish? I don't know. Maybe wrong. Anyway, that is happening. Hello, everybody. How are we all? Had a good week or two? Been doing much, I hope. Playing games, I presume. Buying stuff, I imagine. We're into February, thank God, because January was a shit show. And stuff's been happening. I've played some games. So, you know, let's do that. Played top of the head. So the other night, it was a few nights ago now actually. Friday games. There was only 4 of us. I was hoping to get June Imperium out with all the bling. No report on that yet because that didn't happen. I got there a little bit later and Ben had set up and was in the process of setting up Teothiacuin, which is the Aztec dice game. That's not helpful, I appreciate. So the idea of the game is you have dice. So dice work like a worker placement with using dice, and the dice numbers change and all that sort of stuff. And there's different areas on the board. They go around the board and you can do different boards with different dice that activate different actions to do stuff, either to gain resources. Well, a lot to gain. So about 3 of the boards will give you resources. A couple of boards will allow you to lock in a dice to do stuff. Build bits of a temple in the middle. You're building a pyramid, basically. You can build big tiles of that get built, and they give you points if you lay them down. You can do another tile that allows you to put stuff on there to get. It's all points, basically dice and points and things. With the theme of this Aztec thing that's kind of hits it and then drips off. Really, no. So I wasn't thrilled at the prospect of it. I don't know why. We haven't played it for a while. I remember playing it a while ago. I think it's all right. We played about 45 minutes of the game and then worked out we'd actually missed one major rule and got it entirely wrong, so we started again. And that was it, really. You know what? It's a perfectly fine. Actually, the action of picking the dice and doing it, and the numbers of your dice rising, and you ascend them up and do this other stuff is kind of cool. But the theme is non-existent. It does drip off of it, as I say, pretty quickly. So it doesn't really grip me. I'm just doing stuff. Perhaps if there was a real kind of theme in there, something that kind of jazzed me, that I might be more engaged. It's okay. It's a perfectly serviceable game of kind of worker placement with dice. I like all what it's doing. It just doesn't tickle my sweet gamey brain spot. Nothing kind of goes, ooh, and I want to play more. So that's it. Of the two, I'm going to say another game is Origins, First Builders. I really enjoy that. Similar-ish sort of thing, but the theme definitely comes through stronger in that. And I just like all that's doing, which is very similar to this. Similar-ish with placing dice, worker placement, action type stuff. But I don't know, it's something about the puzzle that Origins presents does more to sweeten my gaming nut than that does. Anyway, Teothiacuin, it's perfectly fine. I know it's very popular. A lot of people played it. We had founders of Teothiacuin or something or other down here somewhere, which was a tile one, which was from board dice as well. Anyway, that. So we played that. I did get to play a game of The Dark Knight Returns. I played it the other week. Solo game predominantly, so I do want to play the rest of the campaign. Essentially, it is played through 4 games that represent the 4 books of the Dark Knight Returns story. The Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight Triumphant, Dark Knight does something else, Dark Knight... I can't remember the last 2. Anyway, that. So the first one, and the idea is essentially you're running a gauntlet. So you're playing through, and you start in kind of this kind of position, but as you go for the game, you're going to get worn down and beaten, and you're kind of so it's kind of like you're starting here and kind of fighting through is the idea of it, I believe. Basic idea of the game is kind of pandemic-ish in that you are Batman. The first game, what you've essentially got to do is you've got to capture Two-Face, and to capture Two-Face, you've got different areas on the board that you can travel to, and then you activate one of the 3 bits on the board, one of the bits on the tile, and each of them will have a different effect to different things. You're mainly using them to remove pieces off the board. So there's mutants going down, press going down, and police going down the board, and they're filling up these circles. When one's completely filled up, by whatever mix of it. Turns into a riot, it's hard to get rid of. Get all the riots come out eventually and you lose the game is the basic gist of it. Now, a couple of things it does really kind of cool, which I do like actually. It comes with a marker pen, and you actually legacy-ish marking on the board stuff. You're drawing routes across the map, so as your game progresses, you can actually link up more areas on the board, which is kind of cool. And you're changing, you're interacting with the board and writing on the board and changing stuff. And you use it to save the game. You write where bits are on the board and you open it back up next time and just pop them out. I kind of like that. That was a pretty cool thing. I've not really seen anything like that in a. I don't think I have. Something that you kind of semi-permanent state but wipeable. That's kind of a cool touch. Lots of the art for the game in it. As I say, the first game you're trying to catch Two-Face, and essentially the idea is you scattered at the start of the game on that first board is some tokens, Two-Face tokens. You've got to find them. They're like quest tokens. Each of the 4 quests comes with their own deck of cards and bits and pieces, components that are used. So that's kind of, each of them is a little bit different. But the first one, you go around, you're collecting tokens, you've got to find Two-Face's coin. When you do that, or a couple of them, you then activate Two-Face, he comes down, you have a big fight. You have Commissioner Gordon's assisting you in the first game. He's an ally and he has some abilities. There's quests that you can complete during the game which carry over throughout the campaign. So if you get a couple of them done, they give you abilities, extra dice and other stuff that you'll carry through the game. So the more that you can kind of do, I think you can load yourself up ready. That's basically the idea. So the idea of the game is basically you're running around as Batman and you're trying to keep these areas from not overflowing. You're also trying to go to each of them to pick up the quest items or whatever you need to do for that one particular game. All the while there's a ticking clock going of rounds counting down and putting more stuff on the board, pandemic-ish style. And as I say, if these ever trigger into a riot situation, then it's game over and that's it, you've lost. And then wherever point you are in, I suppose potentially could reset the game, or you're supposed to start from scratch. That you failed that mission. Quite enjoyed it. It's actually the rule book is ridiculous. It's this big fucking rule book that is utterly unwieldy, and I don't know why they chose on that for the design. I don't know why. It's a stupid choice because it's not. You can't look at that and annoying, stupid. Components wise, apart from that, the tokens are kind of a little bit cheapy cardboard actually, to be honest. But the miniatures are really cool. But for considering it's a deluxe game, a lot of it is a bit lacking in the deluxeness, if I'm honest with you. But the miniatures are very cool. I love that the art is in there. The actual game design is actually pleasantly, surprisingly quite entertaining. It is this pandemic-style game, but it does evoke this kind of Batman-y feel. And what I like about it is when you finish the first game, then the board state is saved. So whatever areas are in a shit show, like Pandemic Legacy, if there's areas starting to blow out of control, then they stay on and they start in that state and start of your second game. So if you really screw the pooch early game, then you're going to be fighting against it all the way through. I know you get more allies as the game goes on, and I think you carry your allies through. You can get these quests, and say you finish, some of them are quite cool, give you dice that you use in fights, you get these bat dice and stuff. And essentially in the fight, you're just rolling dice, trying to hit hits or deflect his. It's like rock, paper, scissors almost type of thing between you and the bad guys. Lots of dice being rolled, always entertaining. And just generally, thematically, it's kind of cool. I liked what it was doing. I need to play through the entire campaign, see how it feels. The first one felt kind of easy. I've heard murmurings that the whole thing's kind of easy. I don't know. There's lots of cool stuff to do. I like that it does a very good job of nodding to the comic books, and it's a fun thing if you're that way inclined. At this point in time, I don't think I could recommend anyone pick it up yet because I've not played it all, but I like aesthetically what it's doing, and it's kind of got some cool design choices that I also dig. So there you go. That is the Dark Knight Returns from who did was that WizKids? Right there. They haven't put their fucking. It wasn't WizKids. I know that much, but anyway, it definitely wasn't WizKids. But anyways, whoever did that, Cryptozoic, I don't fucking know. Cryptozoic, I want to say. So yeah, Dark Knight Returns. We played some more Frosthaven. I won't bore you to death on that one, but yeah, at some point I'll sit down and go through a bit more Frosthaven. Things are moving on. I got to say, the focus of it, the joy what Gloomhaven did and Frosthaven does very well is the card play, in that you're playing these cards. And that's the meat of the core of the game. And I've leveled up my character now, so I get some more cards in my more powerful cards. I'm slowly kind of getting a feel for it, and it's that journey. That's the thing. If Frosthaven or Gloomhaven gets you, it's that journey of you leveling up. It just works so sweet that you're putting the cards in, you're changing that deck and you're tweaking it, refining it, and learning your skills as you come along. And then later on, you can modify that even further. You can really kind of that core sort of mechanism of that stuff, the cards play and how it all links and leveling it up is very cool. It does. That's what I think gets you. And then all the accoutrements of everything on top of it, along with the colony phase and all that, it's kind of cool. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes on. I picked up the Fortella app because it was reasonable priced for it, because there's a lot of text, heavy stuff. I'm struggling with it because my Wi-Fi is not great out here, but I did put it on the PC. And even the app, again, I wrote a shitty. Well, I didn't give it a great review when I had Fortella for Jaws of the Lion because it became a chore trying to use the fucking thing. And it's really frustrating because it is a good piece of software. The speech and all the actual voice acting on that is brilliant, but it's fucking marred by this clunky fucking app that you can't download the sounds, you can't even download all the audio, you have to kind of stream it off of them. If your internet connection's shitty, then you can't do it very well. I put it on the PC using BlueStacks, and we were running it off of there, but it's still being a bit janky on that. But yeah, because there's a lot to do, and it's quite cool if I can run that in between games, because I can leave the speech going, and then everyone's entertained while I kind of do my GME bit, getting the board ready. But yeah, I can't recommend Fortella still, even though it's really well done. The sound is brilliant. It's fantastic. And then this fucking app is wrapped around it, which is just as frustrating. And I've looked at reviews on the App Store, and there's other people saying the same thing. So it is real frustrating that they've not quite fucking, I don't know what their beef is, but sort something out or have the option to. I suppose they don't want you downloading the audio, because if you download it, then it's all going to get downloaded. Someone's just going to put it up on a thing somewhere. I get that, but do something. It's frustrating. So anyway, yeah, we're doing that. Cool. That's been very good. I've been using the Frosthaven Help app, not the Lucky Duck one. The one that's anyway that as well. That's very good. Very, very good. X-Haven, I think it is. I want to say. Absolutely essential. What I do maybe in a video down the road is kind of just give a brief overview of Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, how it goes, and maybe how the apps take stuff out and how that does. I would share my organisational things of Frosthaven. We'll do that maybe, because that's going to make people lose their shit. How I basically just leave stuff laying around the room. That's my organisation of Frosthaven. There's a bit there, a bit there, some bit on the floor down there. Gloomhaven I've just thrown in the corner over there now. Maybe we'll do that, just to get some people's blood pressure bursting. Should we do some news? I think so. I've rambled long enough. Here is the news. There is some news, you'll be pleased to know, as the news has been somewhat lacking in the last couple. So, top of the old agenda, Renegade Games have acquired some Hasbro games. They've acquired things like Robo Rally, Axis and Allies, and Diplomacy, the three sort of big ones out of that one, which have been published by Hasbro for many, many years. That's an interesting development, because Renegade put out some pretty good stuff during the period of that. I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do with those games. Robo Rally could be kind of cool if they're going to tweak it and I don't know if they're just publishing it and just shining it up, or if they're actually going to tinker. I don't know, but I feel that definitely Robo Rally is long overdue, a refinement to make it kind of cool still. And I know they did a later version of it came out, but it wasn't as good as the original. I didn't find the stuff they've done. It kind of. But yeah, I believe that's out of print. So it's if you don't own it, it's a good one to get. Actually, I've never played, but I understand what it does. It's kind of cool. And Diplomacy is a game. I've told the tale many times. We played it a lot, many years ago with our group, and it was a larger group. I think there was about 5 or 6 of us. And it's a game rather like Risk, that you program rules, you program all your moves in advance, set down, and you write them down, actually kind of program them, and then you pass them all in, and it all happens at real time on the board. And you can have alliances, you talk to other people, and you kind of cooperate what you want you're going to do. And one of the core mechanisms of the game is, if you are in an alliance with people, or you're friendly, is that they can use their ships to shuttle your troops across the water spaces. So someone with a big navy can shuffle troops across to other locations. The only way you could cross waterways. In a very quick assumption, which led to us never playing Diplomacy again, I had sided with Bob, and Diplomacy to be fair, could go on for a good few hours. And I believe we'd been playing this for a good few hours. I'd been working with Bob, and I'd been allowing his troops to ferry them across to invade England. I think we were in Russia or somewhere. Anyway, long story short, what had happened was I'd been working on the long game of basically pulling the rug from Bob and betraying him for hours. And I set it all up. He sent all his troops into attack. And what I did, well, is I pulled all my fleet support away from him, trapping him in hostile territory, and invaded his homeland and took it. And his troops were decimated because they were cut off from supply lines and everything else. And I'd fucked him, and he was fucked. And that was fun, and I did very well. And Bob lost terribly, and that was that. I think that was the end of that game, and I think that was the end of us ever playing diplomacy again. Everyone's got one of those stories. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever play it again, because even the prospect of it, I think Bob would run screaming out of the room. Anyway, moving on. ITB games, inside the box games have sadly come on the headlines over the whole, basically the crash and burn of their company. I haven't really covered it up to now. But ITB is pretty much fucked. They were running, I think, about 4 or 5 Kickstarters at one point. None of them had been delivered on. The biggest one of the lot, I think, was probably Subterra 2. I think it's a combination of things. The clearly pandemic has not helped. The COVID, all the shipping costs, all the rise of all of that. A perfect storm for someone who's pushed their luck, maybe financially wise, to come a cropper. And I think that's what's happened. Most recently is there's some ex-employee had managed to hijack the Kickstarter page for, I think, a couple of the actual projects that are still outstanding, and posted on that they hadn't been paid, pensions weren't paid, and stuff hadn't been paid, so they were owed money. And then the final salt in the wounds for a lot of people were backed those Kickstarters was Subterra 2 has made it to retail and is out. Clearly, the stock's been seized or something else has happened. Peter Blenkham, the guy who was the founder and owner of ITB, was communicating briefly on the Kickstarter, has not communicated since, it's gone. And one has to presume at this point that these games are never, the people backed them are never going to get their games. It is a shit show, most certainly. It's sad and it's tragic because it's a UK publisher that, had some early success with Subterra. Definitely, Peter had, and I, knew him and spoke to him and supported him at a couple of the expos, interviewed him, and they, there was murmurings and always issues with some of ITB's business practices and how they'd done stuff. I mean, they had the debacle of they did some 3D printed characters at one of the UK expos, which was just a mess, a total fucking disaster. I don't think anyone had anything decent from that. And I know of other things, and there's definitely stuff that happened behind closed industry doors that I was privy to that weren't cool. So whilst he was a good salesman and he talked the talk, and he was pretty good about doing it, and he had grand schemes and ideas, where I feel that they always were. He wanted to do them, but yeah, he fucked up maybe on other stuff. So I don't think there was ever any ill intent to try and rob any people. I don't think there ever was that. I don't think so. But I think just through mismanagement maybe and bad luck, dumb fucking bad luck, and the global shipping situation and everything else was just, as I say, a perfect storm to pretty much just implode the company. As I say, that's that. So that's been going on. People out there, I mean, if you've been caught up in this, it's shit. And I understand it. I've been very fortunate. I am Kickstarted for a while now, but I only really had one loss of money into Kickstarter. So I kind of, maybe a couple, but yeah, definitely not big money. And only one, I think, about $30. So I never lost the farm on anything. Although Project Dirk still has yet to deliver, but we'll not mention that. So yeah, I've been lucky, and definitely in later years, I usually would go on the sure bets. This is a shame because Kickstarter was all about innovation and people pushing stuff, but Anyway, that shit show happened. If you're caught up in it, yeah, it sucks. And I understand that, and there's money. People lost money. On the other side of it, this is a shit show that he hasn't sorted out his employees. I think probably he's gone into hiding now. I can only possibly vaguely understand the crushing dread of dealing with that as a person. It's mentally not going to do you any good. And Peter always struck me as a bit of a fragile soul. Yeah, I don't know. I wish him well because I don't think he meant any ill to anyone, and no one, he's not going to be having a fun time. I can't imagine in the slightest. And I also feel the other side, all the people have lost money. Just generally, what a shit show. Anyway, moving on. Stonemaier, in a more exciting, thrilling news, Stonemaier Games have announced a Scythe sequel. Who saw that coming? Scythe, the hit. I mean, he sold millions of it. I think it was the big Kickstarter turning point. When that hit Kickstarter, it revolutionized the basic the board game industry to a certain extent of like what people expected out of the games. Stonemaier was always pushing the envelope on that, I think, and kind of pulled a lot of publishers with him on the way that they kind of had to fight to keep up between that bling, that sort of thing, the double layer board and all that kind of cool funk. That's now becoming more of a standard in mainstream games. So that cannot be missed. Personally, for me, Scythe, the concept of Scythe and what it looked like and everything else and the world building and all that around it was much more fantastic and tantalizing than the actual final product. I never really enjoyed Scythe because it sells itself looking like a war game, and it isn't. It's a resource generating game which almost punishes you for warring in it with giant robots. I liked a lot of mechanisms. A lot of them he'd borrowed for other better games, maybe. But Scythe has its swarm of people that really enjoy it. I understand why they do, and it looks gorgeous. And Ben owns everything Scythe, I think, and we've played a lot of Scythe. I've played the Fenris campaign. All of it's kind of cool and lovely and aesthetically fantastic. The game itself, I play it, I enjoy it, but it's never been one that I've been like, oh. Anyway, there's a sequel to it. It's more of a cut down version to it. It's a card game predominantly, though there is some plastic in it. And it looks like it's Scythe Expeditions is what it's called. And the idea is you have two cards, which is like your characters. You have a character and an animal, and it's an engine builder card, which kind of has my interest. And it looks like you have like hex tiles go down and you build like a map and you can travel across it and play cards and stuff will happen. That's kind of what I know. But engine builders, I love an engine builder. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens because the aesthetics are kind of cool. I love the art and the world, as I say, was fantastic. It's just the original game didn't do it for me. So we'll see. Ben will get this, so I will get to play it, and then we'll see. What more interested me was they also announced at the time is the third and final of the Tapestry expansions. Fantasies and Futures. It essentially is a bunch more civilizations and some more Tapestry cards, I think some more tech, and I think that was it. And maybe some locations, possibly. I think there was more locations. That's it. Nothing else. No miniatures, nothing else. It's just cards, but a card expansion. Just to buff everything up, which is kind of cool and makes sense because I really didn't know what else they could really add to Tapestry at this point without it kind of becoming unwieldy. So cool. I look forward to that. And they've promised that later in the year, they will also bring out a pack of revised civilizations. So they've been balancing them over time as games have been recorded. So they track all the games. There's somewhere you can, I think it's a Board Game Geek or somewhere you can go to, a website, and you can track all your Scythe plays of what factions you use, what and who won what and whatever. And they've been using that to balance the factions over time. So there will be apparently these coming out later in the year. There's also going to be a rule book, revised and what all-in-one rule book in this expansion, which is kind of cool. And there's a folded space insert also being released at the same sort of time, which will store everything all in the base box, which I like for folded space stuff. And maybe, I don't know. I think if it's just cards in there, I'm just going to buff it in the box that I've got. And maybe down the road. Again, it'd be a treat if I had the excess cash to buy something like that. But that really excites me. I really like that. I'm sure Ben will get it. He's got a Stonemaier Champion thing, which I did do for the last Tapestry expansion. I'm not going to bother pumping up for it this time. However, I might ask him very nicely if he'll order me a copy of the Tapestry expansion when he does his. I will speak to him about that. But yeah, that has me excited. Love Tapestry, really enjoy it. We played it again the other night. And I just like what that does. I know it has its people don't like it, but I like what it's doing. Mythic Games, I think, also come in a bit of shit the other day, which just makes you a weird one. They put out an email to they're in shit, I believe they're in a bit of a dire financial state because they've been selling off a lot of their licenses, so they're not in a great shape. But they did Darkest Dungeon recently, and they put out an email to backers or people there, basically saying, "Hey, it's a great opportunity to buy this. It's really good." And a lot of it was all swayed towards buying it and then either hoarding it because it's going to be worth money. Or selling it on. Is that really the message we want to be giving out? I understand that people do this, but I'm like, it looks a bit shitty from a publisher to go, "Hey, our stuff, why don't you buy from us and then sell it to someone else for more expensive?" Weird. It's a weird look. But there you go. So there is the news of the board game, and there's probably more, but that's it. Stuff going on with me. Well, Last of Us, I've watched the most recent 4th episode of that. Still pretty good. It's good. It's fucking brilliant. I'm really enjoying that. It's really well done. I'm loving what they've done with that, the tweaks they've done to it. It's good. Solid stuff. I watched Wakanda Forever, the Black Panther 2. I watched it in a couple of bits because it's long. It's about 3 hours long, I think. It was fine. You know what? At least it has some gravitas to it, and it felt a bit grown up, and obviously it was dealing with the death of Chadwick Boseman and all that stuff, and it was there. I felt it felt a bit disjointed. Some of it was kind of cool. I quite like what they did with Namor, but it kind of ends without really an ending, and you're kind of left going, huh. It used the mutant word turned up in there. Finally, they thrown that in there. But yeah, as a whole, it was on Disney Plus, so I watched it on there. Looked good. See, some of the CGI was a bit ropey, some of it really good, and it mostly avoided the big sort of usual Marvel ending to a certain extent. Set a lot of stuff up, but yeah, ultimately it was a mixed affair, but it was alright. It's better than most of the recent Marvel output. I'll go that far, definitely. Other than that, I've been reading the Dice Men book, which is the setup and formulation of Games Workshop. It's fun. I've been enjoying that. It's quite nice just to look at all the old shop bits and pieces and kind of have a bit of a reminisce myself because, you know, I grew up during that age of Games Workshop coming to power in the gaming world in the UK. So it's kind of fun to kind of mirror my childhood while I read that. I think there's other stuff. I've probably watched Lockwood and Co. Started watching that. That's really good, actually. I haven't mentioned that before. By Joe Cornish, the guy who did Attack the Block. I recommend it. It's a young adult, but it's actually really solid. And that's it. I think I was going to read some other stuff, but I clearly didn't. So I can't mention that. That's it. I think that's it. I'm not going to ramble, really, because we could be all night otherwise. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Who Dares Well. I've been Mike B. This has been rambling mumbo-jumbo shit for another week in February. And there you go. There is all that. What's coming up? I don't know. I might do a deep dive into some Frosthaven bits, but I might not. I'll do that as a separate video. I want to play the rest of Dark Knight. Be kind of cool. Hopefully get Dune Imperium play at some point so I can see the shiny. And Ben's got... Ben's got a load of Vita Lasada games, so we're going to play Escape Plan, I believe, this coming Friday. So I will report back on that. Right, cool. There you go. On that bombshell, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening and whatever you're doing. And see you soon. Ta-ta.